I want to share a little story about the old Rovno and new Rovno, and about how a record brought old Rovno back to life. When my father, Oliver Sholem, died in 1989, a year or so after he died, can everyone mute themselves? Can
Ее отец был его Кентор.
everyone mute themselves?
I'm muting.
I can't talk over. I mean, it's just.
Tell Mr. Schwartz to unmute himself.
Okay.
Time Schwartz translating.
Thank you. Not long after my father died, my mother and I were cleaning out the apartment. We're cleaning out the closets, and we found a aluminum tin that I had seen as a boy, but had not seen in decades. And when we opened it, saw inside both records and the unmistakable smell of vinegar. And that's an important issue. But before discovering that, the story about how these records came about of my father singing. After the war, this is a picture of the Volino and Bindemichel in Linz, Austria. Some of your family are in this picture. If anyone wants a copy of this, I'll send them. Be happy to do that. This was in my family. Bindemichel Rovno life was recreated as best as it could be. And in one of the ways, my father, who was a chazan, became a chazan again at Bindemichel, in addition to the postman. This is a picture of my father, Oliver Sholem. This is a picture taken by Jerry Grossman during a ceremony that my father was singing here, the El Moleh Rachmim, and standing behind him and to the right with the light fedora is Simon Wiesenthal. And this was one of the many offerings that they made going around to the different DP camps around Linz after the war. My father singing the Kel Moleh Rachmim, and Wiesenthal calling for vengeance and justice. Before the war, Rovno was called the Stut von der Chazonim, the city of cantors. It was the most important cantorial city in all of Eastern Europe. All of the great cantors either studied there or sang there. In the 1920s, the great Kusevitsky brothers, Moshe and David, were both chazan and choir leader there. The great Gershon Sirota, the greatest cantor of them all, chose his geklibene stimmes, the chosen voices, to accompany him on his tours from Rovno Chazonim. Among his singers were chazans Radziwilovo, Apelevich, and my father, Zindel Sapoznik. After the war, both Jerry Grossman and his uncle Menachem were huge fans of chazanas, and they arranged to make a recording of my father singing in Linz, and found both a small record studio and a pianist to accompany him. And they made 6 records. The records were then placed in the metal tin that it came in. The lid was put on and it was not opened for 50 years. So when I opened it, and knew that something was wrong, I took the records to a recording studio, a friend who had a record label, and we made copies of the records. And the first things that we found, 2 things. One, it was the condition of the record. Here, when you take a look at this Donophone record, you take a look at the lower left-hand corner is a light section. These are not regular records. These were made on aluminum with a very, very thin coating on which the music was recorded. This was coming apart. As the records were being preserved, as the needle cut through, they were also destroying the records. There was one chance to save these records, and all of them were transferred and simultaneously destroyed. Let's take a listen to one of the sides of this, the Baruch Shemay of my father, Olav Shalom, 1947, and recordings paid for by Menachem and Jerry Grossman. Sadly, all the recordings end in the middle because the only disc size they had was too small to keep the entire davening on the record. When we heard these recordings, my friend Richard, who had a record label, was so moved by the performance that we put together an anthology of great chazanim to include my father and the great chazanim from whom he was inspired and sang with. A piece of Rovno, the old style Rovno, the Shtufen Chazonim, is documented for a new generation forever.
Beautiful.